Fox News.
We're already Pika's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better. Announcing the point on Alexa. In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream The Point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream The Point. Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pika's best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
The Justice Department says it's working with the Drug Enforcement Administration to try and stop the flow of fentanyl into the U.S.
U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland calls fentanyl an invisible poison that can be made to look like brand-name drugs to deceive adults or in rainbow colors to lure kids.
Designed to look like candy or prescription drugs.
The DEA's One Pill Can Kill initiative is targeting Mexican cartels they say are behind a majority of fentanyl in the U.S. DEA Administrator Ann Milgram says it's not just direct distribution, but also social media that drives the spread.
100 million other people on Snapchat, 150 million more Americans on Instagram, 180 million more on Facebook.
Milgram says the DEA will work anywhere in the world to end fentanyl distribution and deaths in the U.S. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
The Biden administration is preparing a new $1.1 billion arms package for Ukraine's battle with Russia. Homeless people and their advocates have sued the city of San Francisco in federal court on Tuesday. The Coalition on Homelessness demanding the city stop forcing people living on the streets to clear out without offering shelter, as they say is required by law. The lawsuit also asks the city to stop seizing the property of homeless people. It's been a test flight of an all-electric airplane.
The plane was built by startup Aviation and designed to carry 9 passengers and up to 2 pilots. The aircraft took off from Moses Lake, Washington at 7:10 a.m., then landed safely 8 minutes later. If the Federal Aviation Administration eventually certifies the small airplane to carry passengers, it could become the first all-electric commercial airplane. The company wants to show that it can be used as a commuter aircraft that flies at an altitude around 15,000 feet. This plane is powered by 21,500 small Tesla-style battery cells. It was designed by engineers in Washington State and Israel. John Saucier, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
It's back. Sunday, October 2nd, the Guam Army National Guard presents the GSPN Imas Metgood Strongman Competition. Come to the Paseo grounds and find out who will be the 2022 Strongest Man and Strongest Woman. Can Big Tonsalas and Brittany Pareda defend their titles? Watch the strongest on island take on the Pacific Unlimited Outrigger Lift, the Pacific Tire CTE Tire Flip, ITNE's Pro Pull, the Michelob Ultra Keg Toss, and Paradise Fitness's Tombstone Walk. And you got to be there for the Triple J Truck Pull. Food and drinks will be on sale. All proceeds going to the Tasa Canoe Builders. The GSPN Imas Metgood Competition, Sunday, October 2nd, starting at noon. Special thanks to the stations of Choice Broadcasting. That's Boss 104, Star 101, and The Point. Choice Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning show.
Hands down winners of Guam's morning radio battle.
Daryl Lizama grooves his way through Boss 104, playing Guam's favorite classic hits.
Morning mouth Ray Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all three.
671-888-7346. That's 888-REIO.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So saith the Second Amendment, part of the original amendments of the 10 amendments that make up the Bill of Rights from the Constitution of the United States. You are listening to Tall Tales here on 93.3 FM KUSG, The Point, broadcasting out from Tamuning, the studio. We're also broadcasting out on Tatuha. Here on Guam, we want to welcome everybody from our international radio listening audience, including those here on Guam, those in the States, and those on all points elsewhere. We are your, what is it called, best radio station of 2021.
That's the point, isn't it?
That's PICA. The point was, yes, the point still is. But we are in the running, thanks to all the listeners who nominated us. We are in the running for PICA's best for 2022. Voting starts on October 4th, and I believe all the way to either October 28th, is it? 26th or 28th, 20-something, where you can write in for your favorite radio station, which, of course, is the point. Or it could be Star 101 or Boss 104, because they, too, were nominated for best of PICA's best radio station. We have a little friendly wager going on, a little friendly competition going on between all of our stations here at Choice Broadcasting. And, of course, please support our sponsors who are a part of Best of. I don't have the list in front of me. We'll have the list soon. And as well, PICA's best radio personalities. We received 4. What I mean by we, Choice Broadcasting has received 4 out of the 5 nominations, with Ray Gibson, of course, from Here the Point, Kyle Mandapat from Star 101. We have Albert Juan and Daryl Lizama at Boss 104.
Here.
Okay, so they too have their own mini competition going on between them. So don't forget to vote starting on October 4th, which is coming up next week on Monday. Next week, Monday. Let's get to Jimmy Cutney. Jimmy E. Cutney is Bob's version of Meet the Press, where we play on the words and say press the meet, where we look at the local editorials from our local publications, being that the Post has run away from doing anything local and just posting things from the Post, the Washington Post, that is. It's not really relevant. It's kind of relevant if you follow some of the stuff they do, but editorials ought to be, especially local editorials, ought to be about what's happening in our own community. So we go to the PDN, which has a pretty good editorial today. I kind of like the point where they were attempting to go. Not too sure. I mean, I am sure, but I don't think they said it stronger enough. But we'll read it and then get your thoughts on this. Upcycle. Guam's waste issue requires more than laws and money. Mindsets need to change. Senators on Monday advanced Senator Sabina Perez's bill to a third reading file, bringing Guam another step closer to the grand notion of a zero-waste society, a completely advanced community with all of the creature comforts of progress, jobs, and the freedom to buy pre-packaged snacks and other non-essential items like a 7th pair of tennis shoes or disposable vaping devices. I'm gonna stop right there. No, that's all in there.
That's
why I wanted
there?
to stop, because I wasn't sure what they're getting.
It sounded like snark.
It did. It really did. But they could be serious. I mean, we are a U.S. territory. We are not a state. People call us incorrectly, call people on Guam, citizens of Guam, second-class citizens of the United States. But we still go through first world problems and issues, as this editorial goes. That was a funny paragraph, but that's exactly what it said. But the rest of it gets a little bit better. Perez's Bill 284, the Zero Waste Act, would increase the Guam Environmental Protection Agency's ability to incentivize recycling efforts and allow the agency to roll over unspent money in the recycling revolving fund. We applaud these legislative efforts to improve the ways in which Guam can legally handle and enforce waste disposal. These types of bills are critical to laying out the framework for how we can realistically tackle the waste disposal problem that will only grow as the years pass. But these measures simply are words on a document. Today, as it has been for decades, it is illegal to dump white goods at places other than the facilities that charge for the proper disposal of these items, usually at costs far higher than most struggling families can afford. If found, violators face tens of thousands of dollars in fines and possible incarceration. But still, the number of tips and photos of illegal dump sites that get sent to PDN reporters exponentially outnumbers the case we report of violators paying fines or serving time for illegal dumping. Living a zero-waste lifestyle is simply that, a way of life, a mindset. The cries to transform our community into a society where recycling is cost-effective and readily available have only grown louder in recent years, but they haven't grown into reality. We can't legislate our way into a greener lifestyle, but we can fuel the zero-waste movement with creative ideas and concepts like the Numalo Refillery, where instead of buying bottles of shampoo, customers can bring containers to refill their everyday necessities like dish and laundry soap. We can use the grants and opportunities in Perez's bill to encourage entrepreneurs and no-waste living advocates to bring their ideas to the table to make living green easy and affordable for all.
Living green.
Living green.
It isn't easy being green.
Okay, Kermit. But then they knew that reference, huh? I like this because it is a mindset. We seem to want to, or our legislature seems to want to legislate everything here on the island, from getting rid of plastic bags to at one time aren't paper bags supposed to be banned also, or was that put on pause in recent legislature?
Well, they are recyclable.
Hard to keep up with the nanny state. So many rules and regulations that dictate personal choices coming out from the legislature. Recycling is not a simple issue here on Guam. Everyone thinks recycling is all about collecting your cans, your metals, your aluminum, your paper goods, and just dropping them off at the nearest recycling center. But what does that recycling center do with these goods? Do you know, Daryl?
Well, it depends on the market.
Before we get there, but most people don't even think that there's a market. They think they drop it off the recycling center and they get recycled. But it's more than that. There's a lot more that happens. There's still refineries that have to happen. Who's going to take these material? Because for the majority of the material, it gets shipped off island, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Right. But there has to be a market.
And you're right. And it has to be more profitable. It has to take in more money than it costs to ship it off island.
Well, and if we don't ship it off island, then we have to pay for it to be landfilled.
Exactly.
And there's a cost to that too. So compare your costs.
But see, even if we have all this recycling things, legislation going on, there's still another issue of we're a consumer society, like it or not. We consume things that are presented to us. Sometimes we purchase things even though we don't want to, specifically items, because that's the only items we have in front of us. And I don't know if you've noticed, I noticed here when I moved here to Guam is a lot of packaging that comes from Asia is ridiculous. How many times have you bought a box of something, like a box of snack cakes or something from mom and pop store, only to find out that you it's like going to the Get Smart offices, right? Door after box after wrapper before you get to the product, and it's this little tiny thing, and you end up throwing away waste. And did you pay for the waste? Did you pay for all that packaging?
And that's one of the challenges of a modern society. Do you just cost things based on what it is that you're buying, or do you also include in the cost of the item when you buy it, the cost of it, the disposal of its packaging?
See, again, you're thinking you're thinking that an everyday consumer has that in mind in front of them. But see, they have no choice. We have no choice with these packaging and the products that come here to Guam and the stuff that's put on the shelf. Yet we have these laws being levied on us, right?
But that's why we have a solid waste system. Just like having a sewer system. You know how much you're bringing in, you know how much you're going to be disposing of. And you got to pay for it one way or the other, or the place just gets trashed.
True. And for the most part, I understand the intent of some of these laws and the intent of some of this legislation. But sometimes I think it's a little, it's not instantaneous knee-jerk, but it's a long-term knee-jerk in the sense that it looks like there's a solution, but has everything really been fleshed out before this greener pastures type legislation is put out there? I mean, look like the plastic bag ban that happened right at the start of COVID, right? And then all of a sudden everyone's like, oh yeah, don't worry about it because you can just bring your own bag to the store, the grocery store. I remember writing to Payless, and I'm not going to take credit for this, but it was kind of coincidental that it happened right after I wrote to them, that I just read an article about these reusable bags not being as sanitary as we all thought they were, right? That people don't go home and wash these bags. They don't go home and sanitize their bags after they bring it back from the market and then put it back on top of the conveyor belt.
Well, what's the big deal about sanitizing bags?
Well, because everybody was going such a big deal about sanitizing everything during COVID.
That's right, but and so much of it was poo-pooed. So
let me finish. The point is that everyone has these ideals and wants to implement all these restrictions and their great ideas for green stuff, but they don't understand the implications, or they don't even think about the ramifications of what they're doing. And so they had to stop. They actually stopped people from bringing their own bags for a long time. And guess what? Resorted back to plastic bags.
And, you're right. I agree with you.
And that's the point.
This whole exercise of trying to make sure that unspent funds, of which there's never at the end of a fiscal year, there are no unspent funds because they get transferred into a pot to be used.
Exactly.
And so, but what we really need is to devote the taxes that are collected to a universal solid waste disposal, so that you don't have to have half the people paying $30 a month, half of them not paying $30 a month. Oh, and then the other third, businesses paying whatever the commercial rate is.
Yeah, it just seems. I don't know. I appreciate the intent, but some of these mandates on us. Look at the waste disposal here on Guam, where you have to pay this exorbitant amount every month for disposal, and not everybody can afford it. I haven't even paid that much in the States. Nobody does in the States pays this much for disposal. But actually, the states I've lived in have never paid this much.
The worst part about it is when you're living next to somebody who burns their plastics when you're trying to cook dinner, and you can't breathe. And then the next guy down the street, he doesn't take his white goods because he doesn't have an account, right? So he doesn't take his white goods and throw them out into the jungle. He just stacks them up on the easement. And now the vines are growing over, and we all have complained to the mayor, and the mayor's like, what can I do? I don't have funds to pick this stuff up.
Well,
and it's been going on for years. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and it's one part of the lane of the road is blocked off because the stuff is adjacent to the blacktop.
I like to thank the caller for that. We're going to remain anonymous so his neighbor doesn't figure out who he is.
Everyone knows who he is. The whole block knows who he is.
The whole block knows who he is.
The mayor knows who he is.
But we do have a
and
caller
the last mayor
on the line. Carl, the most dangerous man on the radio, is in the green room, wants to talk about solid waste woes. Carl, do you have the same neighbor that Daryl has in his neighborhood?
I've got a neighbor, actually the entrance to our neighborhood, that is, the houses in my neighborhood are pretty well maintained, but for some reason fate has chosen to position one particular house.
Just before you start, Carl, I want to say this. When I moved here to Guam in 2006 to live here, I've been here many times before. What's remarkable about this island is our neighborhoods, except for maybe minus some of the gated neighborhoods or even Gura housing, they are so diverse with the types of neighbors you have. You can have one neighbor has a pristine garden type of yard and area, and the next one is a junkyard full of old stuff. And the same thing with the types of people who work or who have different incomes still live in the same neighborhood. But I just wanted to make that note before you started because then I would forget. So go ahead, Carlos. Thanks for letting me do that.
Yeah, there's one house at the very entrance to our neighborhood, which most of the houses are pretty well maintained in my neighborhood, which I appreciate. But there's one house right at the entrance. It's one of the worst I've ever seen. It's just filled with junk and trash and I don't know. I just wish it could be, somewhere positioned somewhere else in the neighborhood besides right at the entrance. But anyway, the reason why I called is because I and some of my other friends were helping a elderly couple move from where they live in the south to the north to be nearer to friends who can be of help to them. So we were, they accumulated a lot of stuff over many decades, and we went there one Saturday to load stuff up, transfer whatever's still usable, and to take some stuff to in this case, the Agate transfer station. So we loaded up, a big pickup and a trailer with a bunch of stuff, mixed stuff, and we took it there. And I was reminded again of why I had a bad feeling when I heard about the new way of, distributing trash to not to one central site, but to various sites, because they said, well, we can't take any metal. And I'm not faulting these guys. They're nice guys. They're very pleasant, but it's just the policy,
Yeah.
And they were just enforcing what they were given. So, but they were saying they could not take any metal. So we dumped everything else, the wood and some plastic, in this huge transfer bin. And then we went to one of the places except metal in Harmon, and they told us if it's mixed metal, they would charge because they have to disassemble it. They have to cut off the plastic, etc.
Right.
So fortunately, my friend had a jigsaw and cut off various plastic parts so that we didn't have to pay. But, it was adding up. He was looking over stuff and telling us, well, if you don't cut this off, we're going to charge you $20 for that, $15 for that. They're just making stuff up. But, I could tell this was going to happen, kind of guess it was going to happen when I heard years ago that there's no longer going to be they're closing down the Dededo transfer station, and it just, stuff is just scattered all over the place. Metals, you got to take to a certain area. Cardboard, you got to take to a certain area, and on and on. And it's just the more they frustrate people like this, the more the jungles are just going to get loaded down with stuff. And my friend, whose pickup it was and trailer, he commented, because he worked in Hawaii many years, he said in Hawaii, there's a central place you bring it to, and there's no charge. They just, I don't know how they fund it, I guess through, taxes.
Taxes.
Yeah, it's in Hawaii, so that's how they do it. But that kind of makes sense. It just incentivizes more people not to take the easy way out and just dump it, out in the jungle. One thing I have to compliment Guam Solid Waste on is that whenever I've gone there for white goods to be picked up, they gave me a date and a time, and they were there. They picked it up bright and early. By the time I came out, I put it out the evening before, and the next day it was gone. So they really are efficient at doing that. But, I hope they figure out a different way where things are more centrally located and all this sorting is done at one central location. Personally, I think waste to energy is ideal for Guam, despite, what Kenley and Guerrero says. He always cites, these cases where, it didn't work out. Well, there are cases where it did work out. Mm-hmm. And my friend who was from Hawaii said, I think he said Oahu has a waste-to-energy system, and it works pretty well. And it just makes sense. We've got a limited amount of space on island. We can't just keep, dumping, then move to another site,
we can.
And dump, and then move to another site, and more expense in relocating. Waste-to-energy, from what I've seen, in some videos I've watched, it just makes sense. It reduces all the waste down to a small fraction of what it originally was, and that ash can be used for other things. But that's, anyway, I just wanted to share my frustration.
We know that the Paseo is not an original part of the island. It is a man-made, what's the peninsula? It's a man-made part of the island.
It's landfill.
It's landfill. And if I'm not mistaken, when I was growing up in Hawaii, I heard Ala Moana used to be a landfill also.
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe we can create new beaches and...
You can, as long as you don't worry about as long as there's nobody to say, don't throw that stuff here because it'll leach out for the next 30 years. When I was a kid...
Yeah, but maybe that was...
And we would go fishing down there at the Boat Basin Channel. There was oil leaking out from the
Paseo?
From the ground.
From the ground?
From stuff.
They scratch that idea.
They just bulldozed Agania, and whatever was there was...
Well, they had nowhere else to put it, right? They just put it out there. Is that the reason why they put it there?
Well, they could have put it underneath Marine Drive.
Sorry to keep you there, Carl. It sounds like somebody's hungry.
Yeah, my dog. I'm sorry about that. Anyway, I'm done saying what I needed to say.
Thank you very much, Carl. The most dangerous man. We'll hear from you again.
Right,
Have a great day.
I'll talk with you later.
All right. Yeah, it's something that I remember, but you're right. There's probably a lot of leaching that occurs, and you'd probably have to line things now if you're going to do something like that. Japan does that, but I don't know if they do it with waste. Isn't there an airport island that Japan had tried to create or is creating?
They move a lot of soil and they create land because land is expensive. So it's economic to create land, knock down a hill, and use the hill to fill in soft land.
Even the what is it, the UAB? I'm trying to think. It's somewhere in Saudi Arabia or one of those countries there. Also creates land within their oceans, and they have resorts built on there too.
As long as you can compact it, as long as you've got material.
But I'm wondering what the cost is. The studies that can be done. Is it going to be a huge outreach for people? I know that the national government or the federal government won't allow us to do it. Of course, in these preserves. Isn't that a federal thing?
Just think of what's going to be needed after the ocean rises another foot. We're going to need to have a different Marine Drive. Is not going to be. It's going to be a big long stretch of beachfront property and
then we
area.
recycle material to create gondolas.
But we're going to have to cut new highways.
That's true.
We're going to have to. That's what coral pits are from. To make fill in. Holes.
Yeah, and this is what we have to deal with living on an island. We bring in a lot of stuff. We bring in a lot of things, and the things that we bring in do get packaged, and that package is mostly unusable for anything else, unless some people get creative. But unless you get creative, and we do have a different mindset, we are going to get people who are going to go into the legislature and legislate these things that we should be doing on our own, but we've gotten used to the government doing everything for us, and that's, I think, a mindset has to change. But how do you change people's mindsets when there are seemingly no other options, though, except for
there are so many options.
There are available, but could be available, but they're not made available to us. We're going to take a real quick break, Daryl, if we go to the break, and we'll be right back with more Tall Tales right after this.
Are you looking for a new place to hang out with your friends? Let's go along the sidelines at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Located at 154 Iriarty Road, Unit 4 and 5 in Tamuning behind Royal Bigs. Sidelines, a hidden gem with nothing but great things to offer. Great atmosphere, great food, top shelf drinks, and a great team. What are we waiting for? Let the fun begin at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. See you there.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training every morning on The Ray Gibson Show.
Does your physical workplace have an impact on the mental outlook of workers, their overall job satisfaction, and their productivity? I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we'll talk about that and what you might want to do about it. It's The Extra Point here on 93.3.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point by Jerry Roberts at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts on The Ray Gibson Show on 93.3 The Point.
We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. Call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
And welcome back. My name is Jose Martinez, and I'm hosting your Tall Tales episode program for today and for the next few weeks, all the way into the end of October, when Bob Klitzkie will return from his much-deserved sabbatical in the States. Or he could be in Asia. I'm not too sure. He is a well-traveled man. He says he's been to Indonesia. No, I'm not going to do his joke. I can't do his joke. His joke is his. And everybody knows it already. I'll mess it up. Frenchie, I see you in the green room, but I want to read something really quick. I want to get to another gun control article, just because it's very interesting to me. But there's something that I wanted to talk about later on the card. But this kind of has a connection to some elements of the editorial that we read here, and I think actually, you know what? Scratch that, Frenchie. I'm going to get to you first because I'm going to have to stretch a little to make this connection, and I know that you're itching to talk about this green economy. Good afternoon, Frenchie. You're on.
I was not itching because I took a night shower and did my body.
I thought you were allergic to green economies.
So we'll talk about the green economy. And it's all tied up, actually. What we have on Guam, but it's also in the U.S., it's a tendency to legislate a little bit at the time. Except, of course, for the latest Green New Deal, which was passed with trillions of dollars without most of the representatives or the senators even reading what's in it. And a lot of it has nothing to do with green economy.
Wait, I thought it was the Inflation Act.
Yeah, well, they put a lot of stuff related to green economy and how to get off CO2 producing energy and so on. So there is a lot of fantasy and everything. But the problem that I see on Guam, and I've lived on several islands. I've lived in Tahiti, I live in Taiwan, I lived in Malta, I live in a lot of places. And the issue is always the same. Islands do not have, except for a few exceptions, do not have what it takes to run electricity producing And so what we have to do is that we have to import things, and we have to generate power in order to transform our energy into an economy. And so the problem is that we have at the legislature here on Guam, we have a tendency to let the people that have hijacked the green agenda for political reasons that have nothing to do with the green agenda, and put a multitude of little laws and regulations that are so Byzantine in many respects, and very few people have a clue of what they need to do or not to do. And then we have created the solid waste management, which was under federal administration because we didn't know how to run it. And now we are faced again with an issue of energy, which is all tied up to also garbage and everything. Actually, last night I was as a fundraiser. It was interesting because there was a lot of candidates that were there that were not fundraising, especially for themselves. But, you know, when you talk to them, you realize very fast that very few of them have mastered the understanding of what the challenge is to have energy and recycling on the island. Now, we have two sets of islands that are close to Guam. One is Japan, and the other one is Taiwan, that are the best in the world at recycling, transforming it in energy and other byproducts. And we go, the Guam Visitors Bureau go to visit those places, but nobody in the government goes and try to find out how they are doing what they are doing and how well they are doing it, because we know better, you know. And we have that saying, we don't want to be a colony of the United States, but we are Americans and we know better than those Asian countries. And it is ridiculous. It is not bringing us anything. And I always say, if you don't understand the impact of the ecology on an island, you need to go and visit the Dominican Republic. And then once you visited the Dominican Republic, you need to cross over into Haiti, which is on the same island and has ruined the island completely. So you have an island, Hispaniola, which has two states that have had totally different approach, and you see the results on one side of common sense approach to the ecology, and the other one of stupid approach to ecology, and the dire consequences for their people who have to live in droves. And so this leads me to cost of fuel. You know, the Biden administration's EPA has suddenly accelerated the plans for generators to use low sulfur diesel, which is great on its face. But the problem is this: number one, low sulfur diesel is much more expensive than the old-fashioned diesel. Number two, there is only so many refineries that produce it. All right. And number three, it is not as efficient of a fuel to generate electricity than the old diesel. So now we have an issue is that we have to transform all our generators on the island while we refuse to do a waste to energy plant, even though, because we're stuck in the past when the plants were actually not very good for the environment, and now they have evolved to actually be extremely efficient regarding the environment, and in some cases even less polluting than a diesel plant. So we have this, and this winter, when we're going to have the energy crisis in Europe because of the stupid boomerang effect of the globalist sanctions against Russia, and then that can be discussed. But economically, the Europeans are going to try to buy every little bit of energy they can this winter because they are not buying from Russia. And this will put the Europeans in competition with every third world country and with every places in the world that is trying to buy energy. We get our fuel from Singapore. Singapore has a refinery for diesel, but they can only produce so much. And what we will have, because of the market, the way it works, where people will try to buy at a higher price, we do not have at GPA right now the capabilities, because they are broke, to buy on the futures market at a lower price. And the problem will be that it is very much possible that the suppliers might not be able to give us the diesel we need for the dry season. So we have politicians that have no clue what they're doing. They don't understand the economics. The cost of fuel has a direct impact on the cost of business and, of course, on the cost of living. So we were just, I think it's yesterday you mentioned the exodus of people from the territories and losing population and losing the brains of the island to the U.S. And this is true. And now we're going to have also to replace the sewer system on the northern part of the island where it exists, because it's already very old and it's going to start breaking down. So we have all kinds of issues, and we have politicians that do not really comprehend the issues. They are very partisan for other issues, like Senator Perez. She used the ecology to basically want to stop the development of the military on the island, just like the candidate for delegate, Juan Pat. They are far less extremists that use the goodwill of the people, because a lot of people, I don't know many people that are against green good green policies. But the problem is that instead of having good green policies, they are enacting punitive ecology instead of logical ecology. Ecology has to be adapted to its own environment. We have a very specific environment. We actually have two on the island. We have the south and the north. And while some of the problems are similar for both sides of the island, they are also very different, especially when it comes to water on the island and how you approach this and the cost of things. Very few people know that GPA last month barely made payroll. This should be on the front page of the Post and the PDN. Radio silence. Nobody talks about it. They raise the rates in order to shrink the deficit that GPA was in from $20 million to 12. Well, the deficit is now 47. So what are we going to do? None of the senators, they're talking about making potting cookies legal. But this will have a huge impact on our daily lives. And it will have a huge impact on people that employ people, companies. If the cost of energy, the cost of doing business goes up tremendously, guess where they're going to cut? In employment. And we're going to see more people leaving the island. So it's all tied up. You need to have a comprehensive approach to ecology that includes the water, the way we produce energy, trying to have comprehensive and efficient ways, and maybe do some private public things, because the government of Guam is not known for being very efficient in the way they run things. Look at Parks and Rec. They cannot even run the 2 swimming pools we have. The bathrooms at the beach are closed, padlocked, while tourists are on the beach trying to enjoy themselves. They don't know how to run things. So we, to the exception maybe of Carl Guterres, but he's the exception rather than the rule. So for the elections, you need to look at what the candidates are proposing and to look at the ones that were in place and say, they didn't do anything about this. What's going on? There is very few of the senators that have approached this, and a lot of them are afraid because they don't want to touch it with a 15-foot ball. Even less.
I find it interesting that you talked about the approach to green economy being mostly punitive here on the island. If it is a punishment, and it seems like another agenda, and that's to create another class of not to create, but to identify that class of citizens that's going to be dependent on the government taking care of those punitive damages for them through more program salapis, more all sorts of those type of dependency on the government.
How are you going to pay for those programs if your economy is in shambles because of the price of energy?
It's a short-term issue. Solution.
It's putting a Band-Aid on a very bad scar.
Yeah.
And they think they are not. They are not fixing it. They are just kicking the ball down the corridor and trying to have somebody else fix it. And the Leon Guerrero administration has been not addressing this at all. They've been distributing federal money so they can be reelected, but they haven't done much. They certainly have not been above board as far as communication. They hide everything. And then the senators, a lot of the senators, like Senator Perez, but others, are totally clueless, except that they don't want the military, just like one pat.
Yeah.
So you have to see, right now the military is basically the only thing that brings us revenue outside of the pork that Michael St. Nicholas was able to get us. And I don't know if either of the candidates, Wontat or Moylan, would be able to give us that pork, because what he did was exceptional, and he was not recognized. And basically, the delegate is the one that gets the pork to Guam and allows for the city programs that Adelup is coming with. So this election is going to be very important for all those reasons, and you cannot have a case-by-case solution. You have to have a comprehensive solution that looks at all the challenges. And if we have to go to Taiwan or to Japan to look at what they do well, and you go to Taipei and you see their recycle system and you say, oh my God, why don't we do this? And it's self.
Well, I think that's a good thing. I think I'd like to look into what they do, how they do it without all the rigmarole of how we go through.
Actually.
Yeah, or without racing.
Because they actually generate revenue from the recyclings, and they even recycle foodstuff. So that shows you they even have pig farms that are fed with the foodstuff from the recycling from people's homes.
Right.
So this shows you it can be done. You just need the political will, and you need people from both sides of the aisle that are of good
and
will.
it takes the rest of the people to stop relying just on the government to change their minds and to understand things and to run things for them. I mean, these are our lives. We ought to be thinking more about what we want from the choices we want to make. Frenchie, we're coming up on a break. I want to thank you for, again, some more enlightening commentary. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. You're listening to Tall Tales. My name is Jose Martinez. This is 93.3 FM, KUSG. It is 4:50. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this quick break.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Insurance.
Half a day. This is Clara Manglona from Security Title. A power of attorney can be a useful tool in a real estate transaction, but if abused, it can result in devastating loss. Choosing your representative should be done with the utmost care and should be very specific about the powers being granted. To mitigate loss, the team at Security Title confirms with the owner prior to using a power of attorney to sell the property. Each transaction is unique. Let the professionals at Security Title use our experience to facilitate a secure closing. We are here to help.
.452, and you are listening to Tall Tales with Jose Martinez on The Point, KUSG 93.3 FM. Always, it's like a Frenchie is a good substitute teacher for Bob Klitzkie. I think I'm just a auditor standing in, but we get our college. I think are some of the best callers. It's not just about to rant and rave. It's to give us a little bit of instruction. There is a lot of opining, or there is an element of opining involved, but I think it's done with an informative mind, rather than just a rhetorical mind. What do you think?
Well, there are times when I disagree with what Frenchie has to say, but this last call was not one of those times. I agreed with every point he made, and when he raised the point about Taiwan, my wife is from Taiwan. When we go there to visit, we have occasion to actually drive immediately by a recycling center, a waste-to-energy center. And also, because I'm there and I see that they collect trash every day. Trash does not build up. Of course, it's a city, so there's a lot of trash. But it doesn't. There is no space devoted to the stockpiling of trash for a week. And so there are no roaches.
They're a bigger island than we are.
Well, they found a way to do it, and it works. And everything is burned, and the monitoring of the dioxins and furans and all that stuff is displayed on a big board that faces the biggest intersection in the area, and it's real time reporting from the sensors in the smokestack. You look at the stack, and the people that are right there can see. And then they have a way to immediately shut it down if there's something wrong, and they have contingencies, but it's every day. All the waste is separated, and there's a time for collection that is convenient for people in their homes, and they take it out there, and it's collected, and it's just a very, very good system.
Awesome. Well, again, it's a mindset change. It has to, and even proponents of this, or have to do a better job of convincing the rest of the community what can be done here on the island. I don't think we hear enough, and maybe
but they haven't figured it out, and they need to figure it out because they're actually doing this in our name. They're using tax money to run a public service, and the service is half baked.
Junk.
No, it's just half baked. That's why that's why there's so much left over that's not captured that ends up as trash on our roadsides.
Yeah, that is an interesting thing. It's the amount of dumping that goes on too on this island. It becomes part of anecdotal evidence and stories. People have seen people dump. I've witnessed it myself as well. But what drives people to think that this is acceptable? That I don't even think in the mind they think it's anything illegal. It's just a matter of convenience.
Everyone knows it's illegal, but if there isn't any convenient way to properly dispose of, well, then they're going to have to find some way to get rid of it. Just look at if the refrigerator dies, you have to go out and buy a new one. But when you go buy the new one, and they deliver it, they don't take the old one back. There is no requirement.
Let me just give you an example of an experience I had during the whole Paget outcry when the military was first looking at that location to build upon. There was a huge outcry. A lot of protesters and activists went out there, and I went out there too to help out because besides the protest that was going on, there was a huge cleanup on the side of the road there. And I remember walking up and down the road with a garbage bag going, I'm not really walking very far before I fill this bag up. I mean, it was incredible how much trash is dumped here on Guam on the sides of the roads in the jungle area. And it's not the military's trash because they're actually pretty good at disposal on base. And I've seen their disposal system. They're separate. They even separate the green waste from other stuff. But it's amazing how the focus was on the military and the activism, and that was a story in itself. But the trash on the side and the illegal dumping was kind of the side story. And I'm like, it actually opened up my eyes to what really is going on this island, is that we don't want to look at ourselves for some of the things that we should be responsible for, and we should stop blaming third parties for a lot of the issues here on this island. The military is here, and they do things differently than a lot of people would like them to be, but we also do a lot of damage to ourselves by not even looking into ourselves, and that's what's going to have to start.
They really shouldn't. The issue shouldn't be comparing. They shouldn't even have been joined. We have work that we need to do, and they have work that they need to do.
That's a good point, too. That's a good point. But I could not ignore the fact that the trash that I was picking up and helping to pick up, and there was a lot. I mean, the amount of tires that were on the side of the road could have been another dump area, If any of that caught on fire, it was huge. I have pictures of the amounts of stuff that was just left there. And that's just a tiny section starting from the sign that says, "Welcome to Jigo," all the way up towards maybe 100 yards past the Paget entrance.
Welcome to Jigo. Yeah. If you go up to Saipan, you don't find any of this. Nope. There is no silliness about it. They just take care of it. It's hard to find an old cardboard box to wrap stuff to bring back to Guam.
It's not legislation. It's a mindset, and we really have to take care of ourselves here. We're at the top of the hour. We're going to the big halftime show. Please don't go away. More to come on Tall Tales. This is Jose Martinez. It's 4:59. We'll be right back after this.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Less than 100 miles from the coast. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News.
This is going to have widespread impact.
Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis warning Hurricane Ian hours away from making landfall in southwest Florida.
Major hurricane, Category 4, that initial impact, that's going to be severe. The storm surge is going to be severe.
That surge could be 9 to 12 feet in some coastal areas. The sea is already washing over parts of the Florida Keys. Flooding is reported in Key West.
When we go into landfall sometime Wednesday afternoon, hurricane force winds certainly going to be in the bullseye for Fort Myers. The hurricane gusts extend up towards Tampa Bay, down into Naples, and then we are expecting to see tropical storm force winds. That's going to be wind gusts up to 40 miles per hour, 40 to 45 miles per hour, impacting Miami, West Palm Beach, up into Orlando.
Meteorologist Jane Miner at Fox Weather. Hundreds of thousands of Floridians heeding the governor's plea to evacuate, including these people in Hillsborough County.
A little nervous.
a little nervous about what we'll come back to on Friday after we evacuate.
You can buy your things again, and everything will be all right. Just get out of here and keep yourself safe.
The National Hurricane Center says Ian is less than 95 miles southwest of Naples, Florida. Winds sustained at 120 miles an hour. Landfall likely in about 12 hours or so. Live updates at foxweather.com. The Senate voting Tuesday to move ahead with a bill that would fund the government beyond Friday, but only after a provision to revise the country's energy permitting process was dropped from it. That portion was seen as payback to West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin for his support of the so-called Inflation Reduction Act. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell.
Both sides of the aisle want to prevent a government shutdown that no one wants. Both sides want to keep resources flowing to disaster-stricken communities.
Senate Majority Leader Schumer says he'll find another way to pass that dropped provision at a later date. America is listening to Fox News.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
The Biden administration officially holding firm on the number of refugees the U.S. will accept next year.
The White House says the U.S. will admit the same number of refugees next year as it allowed this year, 125,000. The administration said that number is justified by humanitarian concerns. But the United Nations Refugee Agency says there are at least 89 million refugees around the world. Advocates have been saying the U.S. has to do more. The State Department did announce earlier this year the U.S. is going to set up a pilot program that will allow for private citizens to sponsor and directly help refugees settle in the U.S. Roll Call reports that program is supposed to be launched soon. In Washington, Jill Nato, Fox News.
In Philadelphia, police say a 14-year-old boy was killed, 4 other teens wounded in a shooting following a high school football scrimmage on Tuesday. City leaders are moving to ban guns in some public places.
The Philadelphia Police Department reports homicides are up 2% from an exceptionally violent 2021. Overall violence is up 7% from the previous year. City leaders are blaming guns.
400 people have lost their lives to gun violence in Philadelphia this year.
Democrat Mayor Jim Kenney.
Friends, neighbors, co-workers, and classmates. They were our family members, all lost to senseless, preventable violence.
Hoping to prevent future homicides, the mayor signed an executive order banning guns and other weapons from the city's indoor and outdoor recreation spaces, including parks, basketball courts, and pools. Critics of Philadelphia's progressive leadership, though, blame what they call soft-on-crime policies for the spike in violence. Tom Graham, Fox News.
Americans will pay less next year on monthly premiums for Medicare Part B, which covers routine doctor visits. The 3% drop in monthly premiums likely to be coupled with a historically high cost of living increase in Social Security benefits. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Half a day. This is Clara Manglona from Security Title. A power of attorney can be a useful tool in a real estate transaction, but if abused, it can result in devastating loss. Choosing your representative should be done with the utmost care and should be very specific about the powers being granted. To mitigate loss, the team at Security Title confirms with the owner prior to using a power of attorney to sell the property. Each transaction is unique. Let the professionals at Security Title use our experience to facilitate a secure closing. We are here to help.
Choice Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning shows.
Hands down winners of Guam's morning radio battle.
Daryl Lizama grooves his way through Boss 104 playing Guam's favorite classic hits.
Morning Mouth Ray Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all three.
671-888-7346. That's 888-RGIO.
It's back. Sunday, October 2nd, the Guam Army National Guard presents the GSPN Imas Metgood Strongman Competition. Come to the Paseo grounds and find out who will be the 2022 Strongest Man and Strongest Woman. Can Big Gonzalez and Brittany Pareda defend their titles? Watch the strongest on island take on the Pacific Unlimited Outrigger Lift, the Pacific Tire CTV Tire Flip, ITNE's Pro Pull, the Michelob Ultra Keg Toss, and Paradise Fitness's Tombstone Walk. And you got to be there for the Triple J Truck Pull. Food and drinks will be on sale. All proceeds going to the Tasa Canoe Builders. The GSPN Imas Metgood Competition, Sunday, October 2nd, starting at noon. Special thanks to the stations of choice broadcasting. That's Boss 104, Star 101, and The Point.
Time show here on Tall Tales. You're listening to the most #1 rated international radio show on Guam, broadcasting all over the world, United States, and locally on 93.3 FM, KUSG The Point. My name is Jose Martinez, and we are back here on Tall Tales with some more great content. But right now we have James, who wants to talk about waste to energy. Good afternoon. Welcome to Tall Tales, James.
Good afternoon. How's it going, guys?
Oh, our James. How you doing?
It's our James, yeah. Well, let me bring a couple of things to everybody's attention.
Sure thing.
Might not be at the forefront of why we have some of the problems that we have.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I want to say it was like 2004, 5, 6. We started identifying that we had electrical generation problems, that we had grid problems. We started identifying that we had dump site problems, landfill problems, okay? So we brought in some of the best think tanks that the United States has to offer. And one of them, not going to break my arm to pat myself on the back, was already here. But Misty Conrad from the National Renewable Energy Office in Golden, Colorado, John Toss from the Federal Electric Regulatory Commission, myself, and a myriad think tank of other engineers assembled to form the Energy Task Force. Okay, well, we didn't just get charged with energy, but energy was a big part of it. But we also were looking at the landfills for gasification, for waste to energy, whether it was feasible, whether it was going to be, something that we could do out here in the island, etc. And what we started doing was we started looking at other island nations, and Frenchie hit it right on the head with Taiwan, at what they've been doing for decades that works, that's feasible, that's reliable. Okay. Fast forward to the time when we submitted all of our white papers to U.S. Department of Energy, the EPA. Everybody got a copy of all of the recommendations of the Department of Energy, the USDA, okay? For some reason, somebody made some decisions, and I'm going to say that I think that they were, I'm not going to call them poor decisions, I'm going to say that they were uninformed decisions. And they tried to shoehorn what California and Oregon and Washington State is doing, and they tried to shoehorn that into some ideas for what we should be doing over here. So we have a multiple-pronged problem with approaching this, and one of them, maybe not the biggest one, but one of them is just because it works for California or Washington State or wherever state in the mainland doesn't mean that it's an automatic fit for us, because we have a completely and totally different situation that we have to operate in, being an island and being not that close to everybody. So we can't just automatically take California or Washington boilerplate and make it work for us. We've got to actually approach this with an open mind and go outside the box and say, hey, we need to find out what's going to work best for Guam. Mm-hmm. What's going to work best for CNMI, okay? And yes, the CNMI doesn't have nearly as much problem or as big a problem as we have here in Guam, but we have other issues along the lines of, okay, let's say the average, you want to know why we have so much dumping on the island? Okay, this didn't really hit home to me until I transferred from CNMI. I was there for 12 years. I transferred to Guam, and I was cleaning out the house that we bought, and I went down to the the public refuse, and they were like, oh, you've got a tire. Oh, you've got some wood pallets. Oh, you've got a plastic 55-gallon drum. Well, okay, we can take this and this, but we can't take that. You'll have to go to another landfill to get rid of that. So I drove to the other landfill, and they were like, oh, well, we can take the plastic and the broken tile, but we can't take the wood or the green stuff. Mm-hmm. So then I had to drive to another location. And they said, oh, well, we can take the green stuff, but we can't take any of this other stuff. I ended up having to drive to 4 different locations over a period of 3 days to figure out how to get rid of one Nissan pickup truck load of stuff that the average homeowner, if he was cleaning out a house or whatever, would have to dispose of. Now, the average person, and I'm just going to speak about the average residential person, we're not even going to get into commercial dumping, okay, is not going to go through all of that. It's not convenient. It takes so much time to figure out who takes this, who takes that, drive from here, drive to there. And there's a fee involved with every one of these, okay? And I just made a dump load the other day, and it wasn't even a load. It was like, took me less than 2 minutes to get it out of the back of my truck, and they wanted to charge me $30 for it. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm not saying it should be free. It should be reasonably priced, but it's got to be convenient. People are not going to put up with that kind of hassle and headache. They're going to drive right out here on the backside of Nimitz Hill. They're going to find one of these roads that looks like somebody hasn't driven up and down for a couple of months, but you can just barely still see tire tracks. And they're going to go back there and they're going to dump couches. And I'm not even getting into air conditioners or appliances and all this other stuff.
Right.
Okay. It's not set up correctly or properly from the word go. And I guess what I'm looking for here is the term not user friendly. Okay. And the harder you make it at any price, little less if it's hugely expensive, the less you're going to have people that want to try to go along with it. We need to look at this with a new open mind, and we need to approach this from a thinking outside the box look on things. I argued with the receivers about the way that they wanted to try to do the landfills. And I told them that they were going to have problems. And I told them that they were going to have problems 10 years ago. Now, guess what? They've got problems. Okay? But it's because they brought in people that didn't have the right mindset, and most certainly not an open mindset, to look around and say, okay, hey, Guam is not take your pick anywhere mainland USA. We have some things that we have to do that specifically work for Guam CNMI. Maybe they could use Hawaii, okay, for part of it. but they can't just come in and bring in, Washington State or California boilerplate and say, okay, you're going to do this because this is the regulation there, and it works for them, so it's going to work for you. It ain't going to work here. We all tried to tell them. I have no idea what the task force is doing now. In fact, I really don't even think they're even very functional anymore. But we recommended gasification, and we recommended waste to energy back then, and the EPA just absolutely went ballistic. And the receivers went absolutely ballistic. We're like, hey, it can be done.
James, can I ask you real quick?
Can
I ask you real quick? Gasification, is that tapping into the landfill itself for all that waste? What is it, methane gas
all
and things like that?
All the gases.
God, I've seen that successfully done in other landfills in the States. In fact, where my sister and brother live in Wisconsin, not next door to them, but quite a few ways down, but it's still, you still pass it going to other things. I see these huge landfills with these pipes and things running through it, and they absolutely have a gasification system there, and it works very well. And the place is not.
They use the gas that comes off the natural decomposition of the landfill to fire turbines that make electricity, and it works.
Yes, it does.
And it can be done correctly and properly, and the whole thing.
What was the reason why they didn't want it here?
Well, number one was, that's not a cheap thing to do. Okay. And it's not really something that you can go in. I'm not saying that it couldn't be done, but it's something that you would want to do for a new facility, a new planned landfill that's going to be opened up, so that it starts literally at the ground level, quote unquote. But it's something that we could have worked into for the future to be able to get it online, because we knew that they were going to have to shut down the old dumps. We knew it was only at that time that it was only a matter of time until they shut down the old dumps and the old landfills. That would have been the perfect time to start working it in. Okay, well, now we've got problems with what we've got now. Now would be a perfect time to start working it in. I mean, you either make a change and you start moving in a direction, or you don't. And if you don't ever start moving that direction, then you're not ever going to get down that road. You're going to be stuck on the road where you made the wrong turn. So at some point in time, they've got to bring in some people that have got an open mind, that know what to look for and how to try to implement. We had one of the best gasification and waste to energy system integrators, I think probably at that time anywhere in the world, that was working with us, and we could have totally done it. It can still. It's not like it's too late and it can't be done. It can still be done, and it's viable and it's clean. Just
is that a process that
with the board?
Yeah, you mentioned that it has to be done.
The emissions are at any time. They make the emissions public so everybody understands, hey, this worked and it's okay, and they do that for a reason.
Well, James, I have a question. You said that it could be implemented in the landfill down south because it's a fairly new landfill. For lack of a better term, because I don't have the knowledge in me of this process. What about the order at dump? What can be done about that, or is that just a lost cause and it's just going to remain there? Is there anything that can be done to retrofit?
Thanks to what the receivers in the court have deemed necessary. I'm not going to say that it's a 100% write-off, but I'm going to say it's probably pretty close. I mean, they've messed it up so bad. I don't think they can pull it out. To be honest with you.
Okay. Yeah, because there seems to be
a judge should rule on points of legality. A judge is not an engineering or an environmental waste expert, and that whole thing that's a fiasco.
That was going to be my next question to ask of you is what is your what do you think? I know this is an opinion question. What do you think was the catalyst for saying no to many of these options? Was it political reasons? Was it ignorance, or was it was it based on facts and logistics?
No, it was not based on facts and statistics, because the facts and statistics are they are clear and plain. But other places have been doing it for decades. Like I said, they've been doing it for decades, and it works. It's proven and it's viable. Okay, so the fact is that it can be done. There was a lot of ignorance. There was a lot of politics. And there was just a lot of just outright bad calls made on this from the word go. Like I said, somebody thought that they could just cut, copy, and paste some California and Washington State boilerplate and say, okay, this is the way it's going to be because we said so. Well, yeah, but those people that were making those decisions, like I said, they're not engineers. They're not waste energy experts. They're not system integrators. They were put in a position of being able to make decisions that they were not qualified to make. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, it's incredibly frustrating, and
yes.
and you're not somebody who just read upon articles and studied this. You were right there in the middle of it.
I lived in CNMI for 12 years before I transferred over to Guam, and all total, I've been out here for almost 27 years. I mean, It's not like I'm on the outside looking in. And, I read some articles and I did, 30 minutes worth of research on the internet. I was actually in the CNMI when we showed the CUC how they could generate power, what they could do, how they could set it up, how they could implement it that would actually not only save taxpayers and ratepayers money, but would make the CUC more viable for the long run for the future, because we all knew even back then that not only the cost of, but the availability of bunker fuel and diesel fuel and the maintenance of, I guess in some cases I should say lack of maintenance of generators was going to cause failures, rolling power outages. And guess what? We've got some problems over here on Guam. We're not very far away from doing this little dance all over again.
Right,
okay?
right. Yeah, and a lot of people are looking back into that. I'm listening to Ray talking about the past, and it's happening in the present. And there was talks of this could never have happened again, but now it's happened again. The scheduled brownouts.
Every time we say something can never happen again, we fail to learn from our history. We said that World War II could never happen because we already fixed it with World War I. Yeah, okay. We said World War III would never happen because we fixed it with World War III. Well, World War II didn't fix it so that we'll never have World War III. Look at where we're at right now.
Yeah.
We've had rolling power outages. We've had to bring in, over in Saipan, we had to sign an outrageous contract with a company called Agreco to bring in power generators temporarily to get us out of the rolling power outages. And guess what? We've still got temporary generators. 12 years later, we've still got temporary generators by Agreco over on Saipan right now.
How about up in Jigo?
Yeah.
I hear them at 11 o'clock at night, and they're about a mile away, and I can hear them.
Yep, that's right. And that's what I said. The average person that lives here in the territory doesn't realize where we're at right now and how much closer we're inching to. Man, look, there's going to be all kinds of people out there listening to this right now. Some people that work for GPA, they're going to say, no, we're actually in pretty good shape. No, that's not really a problem. Well, okay. But if everything's okay and everything's not a problem, then A, why is our electricity good? B, why are we having power outages at weird, strange times of the day and the night? Why does everybody that goes down to the GPA office and says, hey, I'd like to install solar on my roof, get handed this big, huge, long, open-ended list of things that may or may not, and I'm going to quote, may or may not be required by the engineering department to approve your solar installation. And then they're told on top of that they have to have batteries included with their solar installation.
That's another story that I'd like to delve deep into, or somebody else would, because this whole solar, industry, I understand the intent, but the more you dig deep into it, it sounds a lot like the electrical car industry. It's just a boon for somebody and a bane for the consumer.
And I'm not going to disagree with you on that, but we did a project over in Saipan, 86 low-income Section 8 homes, where we installed solar on top of all of those. And there again, got tooth and nail. Every step of the way was fought by certain politicians, was fought by CUC, didn't want it to happen. It was 100% paid for with U.S. Department of Agriculture and Department of Energy funding. And nobody wanted this project to go in because they kept saying, oh, well, we're the CUC. We're supposed to provide the electricity. And look, we have bids out right now for solar suppliers to come in and put in utility scale solar generation. And this is not going to be required 5 years from now. How many solar farms do they have in operation in Saipan right now?
I'm going to say 0.
Yeah, 0. And it's not 5 years later. It's 9 years later. They still don't have any solar generation in the CNMI. And they're not going to because they're against it. They think that anybody that has solar is the enemy, and they're going to take money away from the CUC. Now, we have a only slightly better situation here on Guam. They actually did go through the bidding process and completed it, and we have some contractors that have mucked some things up. Okay, and we've got some problems with it, and it's way behind schedule, and we may have some more problems with it in the future. That remains to be seen, but we don't have enough of it happening to be able to help the residents of the territory anytime soon. And in the meantime, they come up with all, and I don't want to come right out and say that they're doing everything that they can do to discourage people from trying to do solar on their roofs of their home or their carports or whatever. But the whole intent of having distributed grid-side solar was to be able to benefit the person that wanted to make the dollar investment to install it on their property and to feed the local utility basically zero, we call it zero cost of generated kilowatts. There was no fuel that was used. There was no maintenance that was required for generators or power plants. It basically feeds kilowatts back into the grid that the utility company can sell to a consumer across the street or down the road and make a profit off of it. And now they turn around and they want people to have to install batteries and this and that. Okay, well, batteries are hugely expensive, and our battery technology is not where it needs to be right now. Same thing for electric vehicles. You know, the whole new Green Deal initiative and everything, yeah, that might work 20 years from now when we've got our technology and our battery storage capability and reliability to the point where it needs to be. But it's not there yet. But the technology for the solar systems themselves is there, and it is viable, and the cost is so much lower right now than it used to be, but they're hampering people from doing distributed grid solar installations by doing this crazy open-ended, well, we may require an engineering feasibility study, and that could cost you $20,000.
Another study, all right.
You know,
Per
at the
house.
snap of your fingers, they can require all these things that are, it's just an open-ended list.
Yeah.
And then they say that you have to have batteries. Well, the batteries are hugely expensive. The capacities and are not where they need to be for where we need to be at to make them mainstream, usable, and reliable. And the waste of having to get rid of that hazardous material every 7 years or so, yeah, that just makes it impossible.
Well, James, I want to thank you again for calling. Another upstanding call from you. It's always, again, a really great learning experience whenever you call in and comment. Your expertise is much noted here, And I just wish you the best. Have a great day. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening in to Tall Tales. We're going to go to the 7th inning stretch. We'll be right back with me, Jose Martinez, Daryl in the production booth, and the field. Don't go away.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training every morning on The Ray Gibson Show.
Does your physical workplace have an impact on the mental outlook of workers, their overall job satisfaction, and their productivity? I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we'll talk about that and what you might want to do about it. It's The Extra Point here on 93.3.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point by Jerry Roberts at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts on The Ray Gibson Show on 93.3 The Point. Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Seventh inning stretch, 2 innings left to go. We have great calls today. That's the International Listening Audience Call Center. That's the theme of today's show, where I'm amazed at but also not surprised at the amount of intellect and knowledge of our listeners. Daryl, it's something that's really refreshing. When I came here to work with Bob Klitzkie, it wasn't just him in this chair. It's the circle of listeners, and it grows every day. And it's great because it's informative. It's a place for I guess, pardon the pun, regular Joes like me to hear these things. I'm not a Rhodes Scholar or anything like that. I have my opinions just like everybody else, but I love to hear those people that are in the midst of it, some of the process that they had to go through as well, and some of the things that they know. Frenchie is a well-traveled person. He might just be the James Bond, I guess, of France, if they had an agency like that, because he seems to have been everywhere in every single meeting of places. He has inside information that sometimes people have died trying to get.
Neither confirmed nor denied.
Neither confirmed or denied. We have the most dangerous man who calls in every now and then, our Carl.
Well, I wanted to actually jump in when our James was on the line. He mentioned Missy Conrad. And it just reminded me of something. I was working at the legislature, and we were looking at the closing of the Audit dump and the moving of the landfill down to Dandan. And I had occasion to sit down with Missy Conrad for hours and go over a lot of the stuff that James was talking about. And I was working at the time for a Republican senator.
It isn't so.
No, that's why I'm on the outs with the Democrats, because I've been working for Republican elected leaders for 15 years.
How can you be on the outs with the Democrats when a lot of staffers go from senator to senator, sometimes no matter what the party affiliation is?
Because I've worked for two Republican elected officials,
big name Democrats too.
and they did not like it, and they've tossed me out on my bum. But the thing
your
is,
conversation with Mary.
But that's right. We discussed at the time when they were generating the report, And I was coming out of the legislature. We were talking a lot about the politics. She was totally aware of it, but she was focusing on putting the technical white papers in front of decision makers. And the methane that would be generated by capping the order dump was known. We were supposed to put the new dump, next to the old dump so that we could cite the methane capture and we could have a place that would monitor it all the time. It was supposed to fuel mass transit buses. That was where the methane was supposed to go. It was supposed to be compressed, bottled. The buses were supposed to be filled, and off they would go. And it was going to dovetail neatly, and we wouldn't have opened up a new location. We would have kept, it just would have expanded further to the west, adjacent to the old, what used to be a valley, now a mountain. It would have just been, 100 yards up the dirt road, but it would have been just a longer facility. And it would have been managed by the people who needed to manage it. And I just watched it all just crumble. From inside the legislature, I watched the
So what were the
advice
objections to that? And I don't want to talk about those who would
candidates
profit
that
of
are
it.
currently running that I had to bump up against.
Yeah.
I'm not going to mention names.
Yeah.
The problem is that they had
Politics.
already a deal
Agendas.
to buy that land down in Dandan and pay the freight. And last time I was up in Saipan, I had a truckload of stuff. And when I went to the solid waste center, they said, no, we don't accept that here. The place you have to go is over here. They gave me a map to it and then went, wait, just a minute. You just drop it off here. We'll take care of it on Monday. Because I told them, man, I'm just here for 2 days. I need to get rid of this stuff. They said, okay, just drop it here. We'll take care of it.
Yeah.
They didn't give me any lip. It wasn't thinking outside the box. It was service-oriented. And that was a whole difference.
Yeah. And the things that work, just wasn't able to. I went and put them on, but if you want to get line 3 to find out who that
I'll
is.
find out who that is. Yeah, sure. And you can get line 1.
I'll get line 1 soon. Johnny, don't go away. I see you in the green room there. I just want to read this article real quick. It's an op-ed that came from the Wall Street Journal from a mayor up in Alaska. This is the article that I was talking about that could be a small factor in some of the agenda-driven topics that happen here on this island. And this has to do with Native Indigenous communities who might differ from the equal warriors, or as we put it here on Tall Tales, the environmental wackos out there, or the saviors of people when they're not even from the area. This one is called, this op-ed is titled, "My Native Alaskan Community Needs the Willow Oil Project." It's not too long, so let me just get to it. The long-delayed Willow Oilfield Project, which is located within the National Petroleum Reserve, Alaska, is vital for Alaska's economy, for America's energy security, and for further modernizing the North Slope region. Some of our residents still live in homes that aren't connected to running water and basic sewage systems. We have no roads connecting our communities because the federal government won't allow us to build them. According to the Bureau of Land Management estimates, Willow could generate between $8 billion and $17 billion in new revenue for the federal government, the state of Alaska, and communities such as the Itaquigwik. And that's an Indian term, a word I can't pronounce correctly. Willow is located on the ancestral lands of the Inupiat people, but it isn't an Inupiat project. That's because the federal government claimed the National Petroleum Reserve for itself before the Alaska's native people had an opportunity to settle our land claims. Eben Hobson, the first mayor of Utaquivek and founder of the Inuit Circumpolar Council, worked with other Inupiat leaders to create the North Slope Borough in 1972. As a home rule municipality, the borough gives our people the ability to tax oil and gas infrastructure and benefit from resource development on our ancestral lands. More than 95% of the North Slope Borough's tax revenue and a third of Alaska's private sector jobs come from the oil and gas industry. The fossil fuel extraction industry has for 50 years enabled us to provide basic services to the 8 Inupiat villages on the North Slope. This money supports essential services in all our villages, including health clinics, schools, Alaska's only tribal college, water and sewer infrastructure, fire and search and rescue services, and our own Department of Wildlife Management. The borough is a unique example of Native Americans using the municipal government model to support themselves. We are able to do this because we have a tax base, and we have a tax base because of the fossil fuel industry. Our job at the North Slope Borough is to defend the interests of our 8 Inupiat communities, protect our ancestral lands, and safeguard our cultural traditions. Subsistence, the ability to care for ourselves and our families, is one of those traditions. The environmental extremists seeking to stop all development of oil and gas in our region are trying to rob my people of our right to self-determination. Our people exist in a world of dual realities. The Inupiat culture and communities depend on a healthy ecosystem. We also depend on modern infrastructure and resource development as the foundation of our regional economy. We take the potential effects of resource development activities on our region seriously. After careful consideration and given our experience, we know that oil and gas drilling can be done in a way that protects our subsistence culture, provides benefits in the form of technological advancements and scientific research, and supports our community needs. Planning for the Willow Project has spanned 5 presidential administrations. It has been the subject of a long and rigorous environmental review. ConocoPhillips, which is developing the project, has incorporated feedback and concerns from local communities. Federal agencies such as the Bureau of Land Management have had their say as well. It's time to move forward. We are tired of outside groups trying to turn this project and every other oil and gas project in our region into the poster child for a global movement away from fossil fuels. This is more than a political oil debate for us. It's about access to land we were promised many years ago. Without projects like Willow and their crucial economic benefits, many of my neighbors would be forced to leave the lands they and their ancestors have inhabited for thousands of years. Senators Lisa Murkowski and Dan Sullivan, labor groups, and Alaska Native leaders have all signaled their strong support for Willow. As our world makes a slow transition to alternative forms of energy, it's time to replace oil imported from countries like Russia with cleaner and safer Alaskan oil. And again, that is a perspective from an indigenous group of people up in Alaska. I like hearing those different perspectives because we constantly hear the droning beat of the drum of the environmental extremists, the anti-oil, cleaner energy people that sometimes don't understand the impacts they have on local communities and their way of lives and their own sensibilities, their own existence in areas where they can succeed using some of the tools and using some of the industries that don't seemingly think to be compatible when you think of indigenous or native people. And that's simply not true. I came from a place in Connecticut where I worked in a multi-million-dollar industry in the food industry, but it was connected to a casino that made a lot of money. Granted, it was a gambling place. There a lot of stuff that goes on there in the casino, but it actually provided a really huge industry for this for this region and for this small plot of reservation land, and for people to come in and try to take that away from them, I think they'd have a fight on their hands. And but the anti-oil or the anti-fossil fuel extremists sometimes delve into places where they don't even know anything about it. And it sounds a little bit similar to what happens here on the island. And I'm not saying that the environmental people here on Guam are not from this area, but sometimes have they stopped to listen to some of the people here on Guam who are having a hard time trying to fulfill some of these lofty agendas that seem to be imposed on us through legislation. Not saying that they're bad, it's just think them through before you implement them. One thing's for, a great example is this plastic bag ban, and in time, a paper bag ban. But enough of my ranting. Let's hear from Johnny, Utah, because we know that Johnny has not ranted enough here on Tall Tales. Good afternoon, Johnny. Green Energy from Utah. What say you?
Well, the woke environmental cultists are on their way to Jonestown. I don't know if you remember the story of Jonestown.
Yes.
Where everyone
and for the record, they all drank Flavor Aid. It was not Kool-Aid.
Flavor Aid, yeah. They're drinking the Flavor Aid. Today, actually, well, it wasn't today now. It was yesterday. I want to tell a little story here. In July, the U.S. Navy Sixth Fleet conducted underwater exercises and research with mock explosives, demonstrating the ability to destroy mines in Bornholm, Denmark, right off the coast of Bornholm, Denmark. This was a very inclusive exercise. It included the U.S. Sixth Fleet Task Force 68, along with Underwater Warfare Center Newport, mine warfare readings and effectiveness measuring out of Langley, Virginia. It was a very intense exercise that went on. This was in July.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. About a week after that, Joe Biden, in an interview with ABC on TV, it's recorded, was asked, Biden stated, take that back. This was back in January. Biden says, if Russia invades, then there will be no longer a Nord Stream pipeline. We will bring it to an end. The reporter asked, but how will you do that exactly, since the project is in Germany's control? And Biden stated, I promise you, we will be able to do that. Mm-hmm. Yesterday, there was 2.5 magnitude earthquakes registered off the coast of Denmark, in between Denmark and Sweden. It was in the exact same area as the U.S. Sixth Fleet's mission in GLI, which is Bornholm, Denmark. Those two explosions separated and destroyed the Nord Stream pipeline that Russia was sending gas through.
Interesting.
This is, let's see here. The Polish National Defense and Foreign Minister posted today saying, thank you, USA, with a picture of the Nord Stream gas leak. This is a massive environmental catastrophe. It is environmental terrorism. Yesterday, there was also the opening of what is called the Baltic Pipeline, which is between Poland and Norway. And now Poland is now thanking visually on Twitter the United States for destroying this pipeline. We have active environmental terrorism occurring from our president, from our government. And CIA, I forgot about the CIA. So the CIA also issued a statement. The CIA has came out and said that they warned Germany that Russia was going to destroy their own pipeline in July. The CIA. Now, one thing I will say about the CIA is whenever the CIA warns you about something, that means they're going to do it. That means they're going to do it. So our country, the United States, just committed an act of terrorism in the Baltic Sea off the coast of Denmark. Now, if you're watching CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, what you are seeing is mop-up. You're seeing the fake, lying Gestapo, Nazi, fascist media.
What are they saying?
At Russia.
Yeah, huh? Yeah. What are they saying? They're as far as sabotage.
Yes, they're saying it's sabotage. That it was sabotage, and they're trying to point the finger at Russia. But here's the other thing too. NATO flew missions in that exact spot yesterday, low level on-the-deck missions in the area just before the explosions occurred.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now these underwater explosions could have happened from a dropped weapon from an airplane. Probably not, unless the Navy somehow was able to plant like a guidance system down there. But my guess is that it was some type of a remote weapon that was left there in that area. Navy was there. The Navy was there. The Sixth Fleet was there with Task Force 68. They are underwater demolition experts. And this is not an anomaly. This is not an error in the pipeline. This is not Russia destroying their own pipeline. Russia is dependent on that relationship with Germany. The only leverage they have in the negotiations for Ukraine with the United Nations and with Germany is that energy source, giving that energy to Europe. If they lose that leverage, they lose the ability to negotiate in Ukraine. Now, here's the scary thing. Putin is coming out. He's coming out strong, and everyone is afraid that this is going to be the beginning of a nuclear war, that he is going to strike, as he is looking at this as an attack on sovereign Russian land that was unprovoked.
Well, I'm just going through all the headlines and a number of all the major news agencies are reporting about this blast, and they were reporting that it definitely is not seismic in nature. It looks like it's deliberate more so than anything else. And I think this is something to look at if we're looking at what's going on in the world right now, and how now as far as who's responsible for, we like to deal as much fact as possible here. However, it is not far-fetched to. It's not the word deduce. What's the word, Daryl? To the opposite of what Sherlock Holmes does. To infer that it could be agents from countries that want to either provoke Russia or to allow Russia to.
Well, just to keep Europe from backsliding.
That too. Oh, Johnny, you're keeping me up on up to date with this stuff.
What does he mean by keep Europe from backsliding? Is that like a positive?
No, I'm saying that to keep Europe from throwing up their hands and going, wait, we need that Russian gas. We don't care about Ukraine. We want the Russian gas. Turn it back on. This way, with those pipelines blown up, there's that possibility no longer exists for the winter of 2022.
Well, except is the Baltic pipeline going to be enough? Okay, that's one factor. But the other factor is what happened to their environmental green movement? They're dumping. This is going to be one of the hugest methane catastrophes on the planet. Do you realize how much methane gas is coming out? Russia did not turn those. If Russia was going to destroy the pipe, they would have turned the gas off.
Oh, the gas has been off.
This is a huge environmental catastrophe.
The gas has been off.
Actually, yeah.
The gas was off like 3 weeks ago.
No, it's
a month
dumping.
ago.
According to this CDC,
it's coming out of the pipe.
CBC News is reporting that there is a massive amount of methane that is being dumped in the ocean right now.
It's coming out of the pipe.
Yeah.
It's how many 100 miles long, right? Hundreds of miles long, and what's in the pipe is leaking.
Daryl, you're not going to make an excuse for this. I'm sorry. This is a deliberate action by our government. To me, it's obvious. Why was the Navy? Why would there be an explosion? Two deliberate explosions in the exact spot the Navy was in a month ago, underwater doing demolition exercises.
Johnny, I incredibly appreciate your call on this, but I'm just looking up the things right now, and I know that you probably had a little bit more time during the day to look at this, because remember we're just waking up to the news that just happens over in the States. But I do have to go to a break because it is the top of the hour, almost close to the top of the hour. But thank you for calling in and. Okay. Let's all do our homework on this.
It is a continuing story.
All right. Thanks a lot, Johnny. Have a good night. You're listening to Tall Tales on KUSG 93.3 FM. Don't go away. We're going to Churchill Downs.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
Tall Tales on KUSG 93.3 FM, Churchill Downs, the home stretch.
Did I leave the impression that I was disagreeing with Johnny Utah?
I have to review that again because I'm not exactly sure.
I was actually agreeing with him by providing to what was to me a reasonable reason why we would want that pipeline to be blown up, and also there is a large field of available gas in Belgium. They just don't want to pump it because what happens is when they pump out the gas, their homes and streets and whatnot start falling into sinkholes.
Well, to me, the last 2 years have shown that sometimes those conspiracies that we've been thinking of that have come to fruition are actually there's a little bit more truth to some of these things. Very feasible, right? And wouldn't go past, I wouldn't put it past some of the actors in the political world. And we do know that covert ops is something that our country, not just our country, a lot of countries get involved in, but it's usually the countries with that are a little bit more money.
Oh, yeah,
more
we have
resources.
The most money of all.
We seem to have the most resources to do it, but I just wanted to just bring it down a little bit, just so I can understand, because I want to understand something that just happened just days ago. This seems to be happening a couple days ago. Bonnie just put on the screen that that the Nord Stream 1 was shut off before that, but Nord Stream 2 was still functioning, and maybe that's where the leaks are coming out of, or the massive dumps of methane is coming out, but we don't know. Again, another eventful Tall Tales episode.
The world is eventful.
Yeah, exactly. We're just talking about it. We're just riding the wave and navigating to where we want to end up being. Sometimes that's just
campaign time.
Yeah, sometimes it's just about being a spectator, and sometimes most times we can control how we view what's happening in our lives and our world.
And then we go vote.
To it. Yeah, it's campaign time. You know what's funny? This campaign's kind of quiet, though.
Wonder why?
It's very quiet.
Wonder why?
We should
crank
move
it
some
up.
way, crank it up. Yeah.
Well, we can't
definitely.
We can't do it between now and the end of the show, though. Except what we want to say.
I'm gonna mute your mic. How do I? Oh, here we go.
Why are you gonna mute my mic?
Let's go, Brandon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Daily battling Ian's fury. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. The National Hurricane Center says tropical storm force winds are now reaching the coasts of South Florida.
Conditions deteriorating here in Fort Myers overnight. This is Fort Myers Beach, which is a very long key, and we are going to take it right in the chin, unfortunately, if this forecast and this track continues to move the way it is. We're expecting anywhere between 8 to 12 feet or more of storm surge.
Robert Ray of Fox Weather. Flooding has already been reported in Key West. The National Weather Service says the hurricane has helped spawn at least 2 tornadoes in Broward County. One of them damaged more than a dozen aircraft at an airport in Hollywood, Florida. The storm, about 90 miles southwest of Naples, Florida, 120 miles an hour. It's a Category 3 storm. Governor Ron DeSantis says President Biden has approved his request for a pre-landfall federal disaster declaration and says they are already preparing for what happens when the storm passes.
Of course, you want to resume services, and so getting the power back on, making sure fuel is in the gas stations, and making sure people have communications.
And the governor tells Fox's Hannity 5,000 Florida National Guard troops have been mobilized for rescue efforts and cleanup assistance. A federal stopgap spending bill to keep the government running after this week has cleared a procedural hurdle in the Senate, but without a provision to reform the energy permitting process in the U.S. It was pulled by Senate Majority Leader Schumer after several senators refused to support that provision that had been promised to West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin.
GOP members have a beef with Manchin since he voted yes on the Democrats' tax, health, and climate bill. That's the so-called Inflation Reduction Act. Schumer wanted to reward Manchin for supporting the bill. Manchin faced opposition from the right and left.
Fox's Chad Pergram at the Capitol. The Senate will attempt to pass that bill as early as today. America is listening to Fox News.
Connect to Fox News Audio on the Fox News app. Listen to hear your favorite hosts like Brian Kilmeade, Jimmy Fallon, and Guy Benson standing up for what's right, live and via podcast. Just click listen, then swipe right and hear the latest news updates on your time. And scroll down to hear the latest podcasts from Fox News. And it's even easier to listen in the car with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Get programming alerts and notifications. Fox News Audio is on the Fox News app. The voices America trusts. Download it now. From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
I'm Ben Domenech, Fox News contributor and editor of the Transom.com daily newsletter, and I'm inviting you to join a conversation every week with the smartest thinkers out there about the issues Americans face and where we're going as a nation. This show will feature deep dive interviews with newsmakers and some of your favorite Fox News analysts. I hope you'll join me as we dive into the fray. It's the Ben Domenech Podcast.
Subscribe and listen now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you download podcasts.
Claims of sabotage following underwater explosions and leaks into the Baltic Sea in gas pipelines between Russia and Europe.
3 gas leaks within 24 hours have been detected from the Nord Stream 1 and 2, pipelines that Russia and European partners spent billions to build. While neither line was operating when the leaks began, European officials are investigating what caused the pipes to rupture. Poland's prime minister blamed sabotage for the leaks, and Ukrainian leadership is already blaming Russia, calling the event a terrorist attack aimed at destabilizing European energy security. Russian officials did not take responsibility, saying the Kremlin is extremely concerned about the leaks.
Fox's Trey Yingst in Kiev. The Kremlin has announced the results of the referendums